A dialogue on policy reforms was held in Battaramulla yesterday for youth representatives of the Parliament's sectoral oversight committees. The event was held under the patronage of President Ranil Wickremesinghe.
Sri Lanka never really had actual economic development. We had an import-dependent economy. When state coffers ran out of funds, we took on debt. We then failed to pay off our debt. No one was ready back then to speak the truth or assert that the country needed a change in how its economy operated. We made promises during election rallies and meetings. Whenever we tried to initiate new programs, some alleged that we were trying to sell the country off and bring in foreigners. In the end, we faced bankruptcy. In 2019, when President Gotabaya Rajapaksa took over, he reduced taxes. In 2015, during my tenure as Prime Minister, I had to implement tax hikes to meet the country's revenue needs. When taxes were reduced, state revenue dwindled. To make matters worse, the COVID-19 pandemic wreaked havoc at the time. Our most pressing need back then was to build up our foreign reserves. We needed $3 billion. However, nobody really spoke about it during the general election. Instead, they went on making promises, knowing very well that they cannot be kept. What ultimately happened was that those who kept making promises secured 224 seats in Parliament, while the UNP secured only 1 seat. In the face of overwhelming economic challenges, the government decided to withdraw itself from the helm. According to parliamentary traditions, the opposition should have then taken on the reins. However, the opposition leader did not take up that responsibility. The JVP also did not take up the responsibility. The failure of those parties to take up the country's responsibility clearly depicts the flawed nature of party politics. I took up that responsibility in the end. No one else was ready to take up the responsibility and solve the issues prevalent in the country at the time. We all know the issues grappling our country at the moment. I speak only of the solutions. The country's opposition leader and Anrukumara Disanayaka had a month-long debate on how to debate. Ultimately, one showed up to debate while the other didn't. However, none of them have put forth a policy agenda on what they intend to do. They have not suggested any alternatives to the status quo. If no one is ready to take up the responsibility of your future, then you will have to take on the reins yourselves.
ඔබතුමා ජනාධිපති මැතිවරණයක පෙරදුනොත් ඔබතුමාගේ ගොඩනගන්න තියෙන සංකල්පය ගෙන යන්න පිරිසක් කරේ මොනවාට නායකත්වය දෙන්න කවුරු හරි ඉන්නවද කියන එක තමයි එතුමාගේ ප්‍රශ්නයක් වෙන්නේ.
මම හිතන්නේ මේ මැතිවරණයේ තියෙන්නේ
This election will decide if the country wins or loses. We have presented an economic program after extensive deliberations with the IMF. What will happen if we fail to meet the benchmarks outlined therein? Who will give us foreign reserves? We will run out of fuel and medicines once again. There will also be long queues again. The choice in the upcoming election will not be between two heads. It will be a choice between systems. The decision you will have to make is if you want this system to continue. If you want the economy to collapse once again, for the dollar to hit 400 rupees, for sheds to run out of fuel, or for the country to be without medicine, fertilizer and foreign reserves, then vote the others into office. Some claim that they will amend the IMF agreement in place at the moment after negotiations with the global lender. But the IMF has clearly stated that they will not change the prevailing agreement. Now, when the time comes for me to authorize the agreement next month, should I sign it? Should I not authorize a deal that will bring the country out of bankruptcy? These are your problems, not mine. Think of your future and take a decision.